Hello everyone, welcome to Book Club Preview. My name is Michael, and today we're looking at a new book, Lab Girl, and we're going to look at the prologue and part 1, Roots and Leaves, chapter 1. And you may notice here, I'm trying to use PowerPoint's captions, subtitle, automated function here, and we'll see how it goes. So let's jump in to Lab Girl. It starts off with the prologue, and she just talks about plant life, on how there is so much plant life. In the ocean, there's about, I think she says, 4 times as much plant life as there are animal life or fish life, whatever. But on land, there's almost like 100 or 1,000 times more plant life than there is like animal life. And so she loves studying plants on land, and the plant life is everywhere. But there's also a lot of plant death. We have been chopping away hundreds of miles, of acres, of kilometers, whatever you want to say, of forest each year. In fact, out of the world's population of trees, we lose about 1% every year. And we've decimated billions of trees. She ends off this prologue talking about wanting us to ask questions. As we think about plants, as we think about leaves, as we think about the texture of leaves and how they're grown. And she says, now if you're asking questions, you are a scientist. You don't need to know math. You don't need to be smart. You just need to ask questions. So now that we're asking questions, she's going to talk to us as one scientist to another. And that's how the prologue ends. So, chapter 1 is super long, but let's try to run into it. She talks about slide rulers, and these are some sliding ruler that might have like a little pin that you stick into something and you can slide it around and measure stuff. I have no idea. I imagine it a little bit like a compass, maybe more flat, but she likes to play with them, and she played with them all the time when she was with her dad in her dad's lab. And in her dad's lab, she spent a lot of her childhood. It was kind of her playland. She would do science and explore chemistry while her dad was preparing for his college courses at a community college. And it's really funny as she's describing this lab experience. She keeps talking about, this thing is this special that it can't even do this, but don't try to do it. This thing is so strong that it won't break if you do this, but don't try it. And she gives these different examples, and it makes it sound like she tried it often when she was a child, but now that maybe she's a professor, she doesn't want other people, college students, to test her theory. So she keeps saying, don't try it. But she had a fantastic time, maybe some of the best times, doing science and chemistry with her father. Usually, she would spend the evening with her dad and then walk home together. And she just walks home and talks about just coming from a small town, of just being in a city where everyone knows each other, where generations grew up in this town. And everyone feels really comfortable with where everyone is. And that's what she grew up as. Just living in this small town, feeling very comfortable, but also having routines that she thought everyone followed in the world. And these routines ended up being more like survival skills, like being silent for a long time, not getting a hug from your dad or mom, maybe not hearing I love you from your dad or mom, not expressing emotion, not hearing emotion expressed, needing to be obedient, all these different things she had to learn to survive in her family. And there's something missing, but that's just how she thought life was like. And she didn't really learn it was different until she left for college. So she talks about springtime coming and how it comes really quickly in Minnesota. Like one day, spring is there. And when spring comes, it's garden time. Now, a lot of mothers and daughters do gardening together, but while they're gardening, they probably talk and gossip and share. But in Hope Jaren, I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name, the author, um, she mostly just worked with her mom. And her mom had gone through the Great Depression, and so her mom was really strict on keeping things enough, having enough food, having enough money, and keeping her family safe. And that's what she would do. And there wasn't a lot of talking or sharing, it was just mostly work. And we learn that her mom was really, really smart when she was younger. In fact, out of this tiny town, she got this really prestigious award and got to go to a scholarship to some university. But it wasn't quite what her mom had hoped for. And even though her mom really tried hard to study and work at the same time, society wasn't really designed for that for women, especially college at that time. And so her mom had to drop out. And so with the author, Hope, she grew up her whole life living her mom's dreams of being very smart, reading a lot, sharing her mom's college ideas together when her mom ended up going back to college to get her bachelor's degree. And so Hope just kind of grew up really smart and living her mom's dream, going off to college early, becoming a scientist, probably getting a master's and a PhD and a researcher. And she just kind of filled that role that her mom was never able to do. But in all of this, she always felt something was missing. Something was missing in that relationship with her mom and that relationship with her dad. And she kind of filled that with science. Science gave her that complete feeling, that joy that she felt. And so she filled in that gap of something missing with hard work and with science. There's more. She talks a little bit about growing up and realizing that she wasn't a boy. Boys got to do different things, and she wasn't able to do them. And she would pretend to be a girl with her friends, but when she was with her dad and doing science, she was a man, or a boy. She was male. And she could do male things like learning and experimenting and stuff like that. And she really resonated and connected with her father and wanted to be him in a lot of ways. Now, I don't think this has a lot of like gender stuff going on here. Just it could. We might find that out later. But mostly, at the least, just a little girl wanting to be like her dad, and we see that in this part. So, you know what? Sorry. This part, she starts talking about how she followed her mom's life. And then mom's life, she talked about just how her mom grew up and was really smart and really genius, but didn't have the money to be able to go to college, which was sad. But then she followed her mom's footsteps and kind of lived out that dream for her mom. So as she needed this something to fill her life, what she found was science filled that need. And what it did was, she said, like just like a plant grows towards the light, that was science for her. Science was that light. And she just kind of grew towards it because it gave her satisfaction and motivation and affirmation. And she just followed that path as hard as she could. And so now, she's a researcher, works at a university. She has her own lab. She's had 3 different labs. Her latest one is the best one. And that lab is like her home. It's that special time that she shared with her dad in the past that's almost like reliving those experiences. And her lab is her safe space. Her lab is her sacred space. and her lab is her special place. If she has a special friend, that the relationship is getting deeper, and just, I mean, like a best friend kind of relationship, not necessarily romantic. Going to the lab is kind of a special event, and she has rules and regulations all about this kind of stuff for herself. She talks about her life a little bit more, and how she doesn't have a lot of funding to be a research scientist, and how hard it is to get money and to live off her salary. And so one of the best ways to get money is through doing research for war science, getting these special grants to be able to create technologies to help with wars or police things and stuff like that. And so her and her colleagues, they get this really expensive microscope, and with it, they're trying to create this new technology to help soldiers and police officers discover what chemicals were in a bomb or something like that. And they get a lot of money from the government, but then they have pressure to fulfill that contract or lose everything. And she's really, really worried because just a few months they're going to run out of money, and if they don't complete the technology, they'll lose everything. Well, they do it. They solve the issues. They get everything right. They're working 80 hours a week, half the time on their war science, half the time on their plant science. And then she goes through writing about all of the different things that she did. This word embellish, I think that was supposed to be in the vocabulary section, but embellish means to make it sound better or bigger or grander. And so even though in her reports she had a lot of failures, finally when they have the success, she writes it like it was pretty simple and easy, and they did a great job. And so now, once they've succeeded, they get to name this technology. And she talks about how scientists are really serious about naming something, and they really think a lot about naming something and how important it is. But they get to name that technology and then sell it. There's an end here on something, but I can't quite remember what it is. But let's jump into vocabulary. First one, staggering. Staggering is like off balance, but in this case, she says a staggering amount of work, I believe, which means there's so much work that you feel dizzy just thinking about it. Pigmentation is the color. In your skin, you have some pigments, some colors that direct what color of skin you have, or color hair. Well, I don't have any hair, but you get the idea. Oh, here you go, my eyebrows. Those are pigmentation in plants and things like that. Burnished, that's like polished. If you think of some metal being really, really polished and smooth to where it shines. Wainscoting, this is like a construction kind of term. It's something to do with like walls, putting a extra coat, a layer on a wall to maybe help with the insulation, because it's very, very cold in Minnesota. Spit is just that saliva in your mouth. I'm not sure why she talks about spit, but that's what it is. Predisposed, this is your mind already thinks of something in general. For example, if I asked you, what do Americans eat? Already your mind has an idea. It might be wrong or it might be correct. But these prejudices, almost, this is predisposed. You have a natural way of already thinking about something, which we need, right? But in some cases it can be bad, and so our minds are predisposed to something. Molt, this is when birds, what gets hot in the summertime, and they drop some of their feathers, and they change their feathers and get new feathers, and all these feathers are falling out. And she uses that term in a different way towards science or growing or changing, but that's kind of what that word means. Indelible, which I had to look this word up because I've never seen it before, but it just means stubborn. And feel free to look it up yourself and correct me if I'm wrong. Undeterred means not giving up. You find some obstacle and you don't give up, you keep going. You are determined to move forward. So you don't turn the other way when you find obstacles. Balmy is like, I believe it's like peaceful, calm. The Hawaiian weather is relaxing and wonderful. Nefarious means like illegal or wrong. She says like nefarious methods to get printer ink at night. So maybe she went to someone else's office or classroom and stole their printer ink, or changed the printer ink with her empty one to be able to print off her reports or whatever. A few more. Here's a long chapter. Moonlighting. Moonlighting is when you have a day job and then at night you have another job. We call this moonlighting. So during the day, they would work on their government contracts for war science, and in the evenings, they would work on their plant science, which was their passion. And we call that moonlighting, having a day job and then having a night job also. Recalcitrant. I looked this word up and I have no idea what it means now. I completely forgot. So I would encourage you to look it up and write the definition in the comments for me. Befuddled is just meaning confused, and I can't remember how she uses it in the chapter, but it means confused. Okay, and now we get to our discussion question. Is there some light in your life that you are growing towards or that you grew towards? She talks about science feeling that need for her, and so she really poured into science. Do you have something like that in your life? Maybe you didn't need, maybe your family was really healthy and they just filled you full of everything and that was kind of your light. Awesome. But maybe you did have some needs and there was something that just really kind of grabbed you and you grew in that direction because you felt some satisfaction. Are you growing towards something? Or maybe in the past, did you grow towards something? And of course, please make your own discussion question. That is all the time that we have for today. But thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Book Club Preview. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, if you have any questions about the video today, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. If you had any other vocabulary words that you wanted to know what they meant, let me know. And also, if you're interested in maybe joining one of these book clubs, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.